Catholic Church say about the conquistadors in the Americas and all the bad things they did in the name of the Church, as well as the Crusades? Do we still accept the teachings of the popes and leaders of that era, even though they were doing very evil things? And some other popes during that same time, 1300 to 1500, were selling indulgences, among other things. Do we still consider them as holy men? Thanks, Luke.
Okay, thanks. So, a lot of things in this question, several different categories getting lumped together.
Yes.
First of all, we don't consider that popes are holy men or not holy men. I mean, holiness is a personal quality that a person develops in cooperation with God's grace, irrespective of one's office or place in the church. So a layperson can be holy if he cooperates with the grace of God, strives after Christian perfection and the love of God or neighbor according to his state of life. The same is true of a pope, who also has to strive for holiness in his personal life and be united to God in charity and love of neighbor. And the layman and the pope can fail to do that. All right, so the fact that you operate in a particular office in the church is not a guarantee that you will attain to personal holiness.
Okay.
So there are popes who are saints and are very holy. There very well may be popes in hell who did not do that, did not cooperate with God's grace, and saw the papacy as an occasion for self-aggrandizement or pursuing their own political projects or whatever. They weren't exercising that office with love of God and neighbor in mind, and so, it ended badly for them.
Yeah.
All right, so the holiness of the Pope, that's another topic. Got to move that to the side.
Got it.
The conquistadors and the Crusades, also two different categories, two different historical eras. Let me talk a little bit about the Crusades. What's the motive for the Crusades? Motive for the Crusades was the Islamic conquest of historically Christian countries and the encroaching imperialism of aggressive Islamic armies. Muhammad started his, how shall I call it, conquest in the 7th century, and within 100 years had pushed through the Iberian Peninsula, his followers had, all the way to France, to Tours. And Christian generals were able to beat back Muslim armies, but they eventually took the Iberian Peninsula. They captured all of North Africa, which was previously Christian. They took the Holy Land. They took Egypt. They took, eventually conquered the Persian Empire, pushed into India. Eventually, of course, by the 16th century, they had conquered Byzantium, all those Christian countries in the east, and were pushing their way west again towards the gates of Vienna, and would routinely execute raids against Christian countries. Islamic raiders would capture Christian women to sell into sex slavery in North Africa. They would literally land on the shore in Italy and run in and grab Christian virgins out of their beds, pull them out, and then off they would go to the Sultan's harem in Constantinople. It was a bad business.
Yeah.
Okay, and Christian Europe was caught in a vice grip of an expansionist and massive Islamic empire that very much had the intention of wiping them out. And to this day, the Islamic world celebrates Islamic generals as heroes and names their mosques and so forth after these characters who were renowned in history for slaughtering Christians. So that's the environment of the Christian world in the Middle Ages, facing this Islamic expansionist threat. Well, there's only so much of that you can do before you say, if we don't do something, we're going to go away.
Yeah.
And so the popes said, it is a meritorious thing to take up arms and defend Christian people against that kind of aggression. That was the motive for the Crusades, to beat back Muslim expansionism, not to convert Muslims by force of arms, which never worked, by the way. It wasn't the intention of the thing. Now, does that mean that the Crusades never perpetrated any abuses or problems? Absolutely not. You give an army of ruffians a bunch of weapons and carte blanche to go to war, bad things are going to happen. I mean, war is always the last resort. But the motive behind the Crusades was not missionary expansion, it was self-defense. Now, with the conquistadors, the popes issued all kinds of warnings about, you can't enslave Native Americans, they're human beings, they have souls, you can't do this, you can't do that. And the conquistadors more or less turned around and thumbed their noses at the popes and did whatever the heck they wanted to do. So there were popes who said it's okay for Christians to colonize in the Western world, and we can revise that judgment now and say, well, maybe we didn't do what we should have been doing as Catholics. But they didn't just give carte blanche for the abuse of the natives. In fact, it was out of this confrontation of European Catholicism with the New World that Catholic theologians had to think through the implications of what happens when you confront these foreign and alien cultures that may be non-Christian. And it was from that ferment of intellectual questions that we actually developed the doctrine of universal human rights. That is a Catholic invention, specifically in the context of trying to think through the implications of engaging non-Christian peoples in undiscovered countries. But no, we certainly don't want to give a pass to everything that Spanish conquistadors or other nationalities did in confrontation with native peoples. There were all kinds of abuses, and we should find those execrable.
Absolutely. Luke, thank you so much.